She was nobody, a substitute teacher in Iowa who was supposed to stay invisible. But when 7-year-old Billy wrapped half his sandwich for later, Anna Ruth Brennan made a decision that would bring down a $35,000 conspiracy and nearly cost her everything. Anna Ruth Brennan was supposed to be invisible, just another substitute teacher in Cedar Grove Elementary. Keep quiet, follow the lesson plans, don't ask questions. But when she saw what they were doing to the children, everything changed. Cedar Grove seemed perfect from the outside. White picket fences, tree-lined streets, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where children rode bikes until dark, and where the biggest scandal was usually who forgot to bring potato salad to the church potluck. Anna had grown up here, orphaned at 12 when her parents died in a car accident on Highway 30, raised by her grandmother in the little white house on Maple Street, where the kitchen always smelled like cinnamon rolls, and where hard truths were served alongside hot coffee. Grandma Brennan had taught her that when you see wrong, you make it right. Doesn't matter if you're small, she'd say, flour dusting her weathered hands as she rolled pie crust. Truth has a way of growing. Anna never planned to come back to Cedar Grove. She'd finished her teaching degree at Iowa State, had interviews lined up in Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, even one in Chicago. But when Grandma got sick, she moved back, took care of Grandma until the end. And when the substitute position opened at Cedar Grove Elementary, she figured it was temporary, just until she could figure out what came next. Cedar Grove Elementary was exactly what you'd expect. Red brick building built in the 1950s, American flag out front that snapped proudly in the Iowa wind, playground with swings and slides that had seen better days, but still echoed with the laughter of children who didn't know yet that the world could disappoint them. Principal Margaret Foster greeted Anna with the kind of smile that never reached. Her eyes, "We're so glad to have you, dear. Mrs. Patterson's third-grade class needs someone." Manageable. Double quotes manageable. Anna filed that word away. In her experience, when adults wanted children to be manageable, it usually meant they wanted them quiet, compliant, invisible. The classroom was cheerful enough. Alphabet posters on the walls in bright primary colors, reading corner with bean bags that had been loved into submission by countless small bodies, 22 little desks arranged in neat rows, waiting for 22 little minds eager to learn about the world beyond Cedar Grove. But it was the children who told the real story. Anna noticed it on her first day, the way some of them looked at lunchtime, the hungry eyes, the careful way they ate every single crumb, the way they'd glance toward the cafeteria line with something that looked suspiciously like worry. Billy Martinez was 7 years old, bright brown eyes that sparkled when he talked about the farm where his father worked, smile that could light up the whole room when he finally understood a math problem. But Anna watched him save half his sandwich every day, wrapping it carefully in his napkin, tucking it into his desk like a treasure for later. He'd whisper when she asked, but Anna was starting to suspect later meant dinner, maybe breakfast too, and that should have been impossible at Cedar Grove Elementary, because Cedar Grove Elementary was part of the federal lunch program. Every child qualified for free breakfast and lunch. The government sent money specifically to feed these kids, good money, taxpayer money, money that was supposed to ensure that no child in America went hungry, while they were supposed to be learning. So where was that money going? Anna started paying attention, really paying attention. The portions seemed smaller than they should be. The quality, questionable. Watery soup, sandwiches with more bread than filling, fruit that looked like it had seen better days, and the curriculum. Anna had been teaching for 5 years. She knew what third graders should be learning, but the books they gave her were different. History sanitized beyond recognition, science simplified until it barely resembled fact, reading materials that seemed designed more to indoctrinate than educate, stories that painted certain groups as heroes and others as villains, with no room for the messy complexity of truth. Anna felt sick to her stomach, but it was Mrs. Dorothy Phillips who finally opened her eyes completely. Dorothy Phillips had been the head cafeteria worker at Cedar Grove Elementary for 20 years. 67 years old, with silver hair always tucked neatly under a hairnet and hands that had served millions of meals to thousands of children. She'd watched 5 superintendents come and go, seen trends in education rise and fall like Iowa corn, and had developed the kind of radar that only comes from decades of watching people. "This one's different," she whispered to Anna one afternoon as they watched Superintendent Harold Wickham stride through the cafeteria like he owned it. "This one's got hungry eyes, hungry for the wrong things." Wickham was 52, silver-haired, and carried himself with the confidence of a man who'd never doubted his own importance. He wore expensive suits that seemed out of place in small-town Iowa, drove a BMW that cost more than most teachers made in 2 years, and had moved to Cedar Grove from Chicago with promises of modernizing the district. "What do you mean?" Anna asked, pretending to organize lunch trays while keeping her voice low. Dorothy glanced around, making sure they were alone. "Honey, I've been counting portions for 2 decades. I know exactly how much food we should have, how much we should be serving, and how much should be left over. The numbers don't add up anymore." She pulled out a small notebook, the kind she'd been keeping since her first day. Page after page of careful handwriting, tracking deliveries, portions, and waste. "See this, week of September 15th. We got our usual delivery. Enough food for 400 children for 5 days. But look at what I served." She pointed to another column. "Maybe enough for 250 kids. Maybe." Anna's blood ran cold. Where did the rest go? That's the question, isn't it? Dorothy's eyes were sad but determined. "And it's not just food, honey. Have you looked at those textbooks they gave you? Really looked at them?" Anna had. The more she taught from them, the more uncomfortable she became. History lessons that conveniently omitted entire populations. Science books that presented theories as facts and facts as theories, depending on what served the narrative. Reading materials that seemed designed to create fear of certain groups while promoting blind loyalty to authority. "My grandson goes to school in Ames," Dorothy continued. "3rd grade, just like your kids. His books are completely different. Better, more complete, more honest." That night, Anna sat in her grandmother's old kitchen, surrounded by the textbooks from her classroom and others she'd borrowed from teacher friends in neighboring districts. The differences were stark. Cedar Grove's children were getting an education, all right, but not the same education as children in other towns. Someone was making decisions about what these children should know and what they shouldn't. The next morning, Anna arrived early. She wanted to observe the breakfast program, something she hadn't paid much attention to before. What she saw made her stomach turn. Children lined up with plastic trays, hoping for a hot meal to start their day. But the portions were tiny. A piece of toast, a small cup of watery juice, maybe a spoonful of scrambled eggs if they were lucky. She watched Billy Martinez get a single piece of toast and a cup of juice that looked more like colored water. According to the federal guidelines posted on the wall, each child should receive a full portion of protein, grain, fruit, and dairy. What they were getting wasn't even close. Anna pulled out her phone and discreetly took pictures. Then she did something that would change everything. She started asking questions. "Mrs. Foster," she said, catching the principal after the morning announcements, "I noticed the breakfast portions seem smaller than the federal guidelines specify. Is there a reason for that?" Margaret Foster's smile faltered for just a moment. "Oh, Anna, dear, you don't need to worry about cafeteria management. That's handled at the district level. Your job is just to teach." But Anna had been raised by a woman who could spot a lie from 3 counties away. "I'm just concerned about the children. Some of them seem hungry." "I'm sure you're mistaken." The smile was back, but colder now. "These children are very well cared for. Perhaps you're just not used to our more efficient approach." Efficient. There was that word again. That afternoon, Anna did something that would have made her grandmother proud. She started digging. Public records were available at the courthouse. Budget documents, federal funding reports, information that any citizen had a right to see. What she found made her hands shake. Cedar Grove Elementary was receiving $47,000 annually from the federal lunch program, enough to provide nutritious meals to every child every day, with money left over. but the invoices she could find showed purchases of maybe $12,000 worth of food. Where was the other $35,000 going? Anna's teaching salary was $23,000 a year. Someone was stealing more money than she made annually, money that was supposed to feed hungry children. She made copies of everything, took pictures with her camera, started building a file that would have impressed a detective. But she wasn't prepared for what happened next. Miss Brennan. Principal Foster's voice was ice cold when Anna arrived at school the next morning. Could you step into my office, please? The office felt smaller than usual. Superintendent Wickham was there, along with two men in expensive suits who introduced themselves as district attorneys. Anna's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. Is there a problem? We understand you've been asking questions about cafeteria operations, Wickham said, his voice smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. We appreciate your enthusiasm, but we need to make something clear. He leaned forward and Anna caught a whiff of expensive cologne and something else, something that smelled like threat. Cedar Grove Elementary runs efficiently because everyone understands their role. Teachers teach, administrators administrate, and everyone minds their own business. The children are my business. Anna said quietly. No, Wickham's voice was sharp now. The children are our business. You're a substitute teacher, temporary, replaceable. And if you want to continue working in this district, you'll remember that. One of the lawyers spoke up. We also understand you've been taking photographs on school property without permission. That's a violation of policy and possibly law. Anna's mouth went dry, but then she remembered something Grandma Brennan used to say when you're scared. Annie, that's usually when you're about to do something important. I have a right to ensure the children are being properly fed, she said. You have a right to do your job and nothing more, Foster interjected. And if you can't do that, we'll find someone who can. They let her go back to her classroom, but Anna knew she was being watched now. She could feel eyes on her during lunch duty. See the way Foster appeared whenever she tried to talk to Dorothy Phillips. Notice how other teachers suddenly seemed busy when she approached. But Anna had something they didn't expect. She had her grandmother's stubbornness. That evening, she drove to Ames to visit Dorothy's grandson's school. The principal there, Dr. Rebecca Martinez, was happy to show her around. We're very proud of our lunch program, Dr. Martinez said, leading Anna through a cafeteria that bustled with activity. Every child gets a full, nutritious meal. It's one of the most important things we do. Anna watched children receive generous portions of real food, fresh fruit, actual vegetables, protein that looked like it came from animals, not laboratories. The contrast with Cedar Grove was stark. How do you afford this? Anna asked. The federal program covers it completely, Dr. Martinez explained. We get funding based on the number of children we serve. It's actually quite generous if you use it properly. If you use it properly. Anna's resolve hardened into something unbreakable. The next day, she made a decision that would put everything at risk. Anna started documenting everything. She arrived early every morning to photograph the breakfast portions, stayed late to count the lunch leftovers, talked to children about what they'd eaten, careful to phrase her questions as concern for their health, rather than investigation into corruption. The picture that emerged was devastating. Children were receiving roughly 40% of what federal guidelines required. The quality was so poor that many kids threw away what little they got. And the hungriest children, kids like Billy Martinez, whose parents worked minimum wage jobs, were going home as hungry as they'd arrived. Meanwhile, she discovered that Wickham had recently purchased a new house, a very expensive new house. He'd also taken several educational conferences in exotic locations, all paid for by the district. His wife drove a new Mercedes. His daughter attended private school in Iowa City. Anna knew she needed help, but who could she trust? The answer came from an unexpected source. Miss Brennan? Billy Martinez tugged on her sleeve after class one day. Can I tell you something? Anna knelt down to his level. Of course, sweetie. What is it? My papa says you're asking questions. Good questions. Billy's voice was barely a whisper. He says maybe you're like the teacher in the story. What story? The one where the teacher saves all the kids. Papa read it to me, from his Bible, about the lady who was brave. Anna's heart stopped. Billy was talking about Esther, the woman who risked everything to save her people. Billy, what else did your papa say? The little boy looked around, making sure no one was listening. He says he knows other papas. Papas who work hard, but their kids are still hungry. He says if you need help, you should come to the church on Sunday, after the service. That Sunday, Anna sat in the back pew of St. Mary's Catholic Church, feeling like a fraud among the faithful families of Cedar Grove's Latino community. But when the service ended and most people had left, 15 men approached her. Migrant workers, farm laborers, men who spoke broken English, but whose eyes held the wisdom of people who'd seen injustice before. "Señorita Anna," said Miguel Martinez, Billy's father, "we hear you ask questions about our children's food." Anna nodded, not trusting her voice. "We know something is wrong," said another man. "Our children come home hungry every day, but we are afraid to speak. We are not, how do you say, legal here, if we make trouble." Anna understood. These families were trapped. They couldn't complain without risking deportation. They couldn't fight back without losing everything. But she could. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Miguel smiled sadly. "Courage, Señorita. Someone with courage to speak for those who cannot speak." That night, Anna made a decision that would have terrified her just weeks earlier. She was going to expose everything, but she needed evidence that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. She waited until the following Friday, when Wickham was scheduled to be in Des Moines for a conference. Using her key to the building, substitute teachers were given access. For after-hours preparation, she entered the school at midnight. Her hands shook as she made her way to the administrative offices. Dorothy Phillips had mentioned that all the real records were kept in Wickham's private office, not in the general files where teachers might accidentally see them. The office was locked, but Anna had grown up in small-town Iowa. Every building constructed before 1970 had the same basic lock system, and she'd learned to pick them from her cousin Jake during a particularly rebellious summer. When she was 16, inside Wickham's office, Anna found a world of expensive furniture and personal items that seemed wildly inappropriate for a public school superintendent. But she wasn't there for the imported Italian desk or the golf trophies. She was there for the filing cabinet marked confidential. What she found inside made her sick. Federal lunch program funding, $47,000 for the current school year. Actual food purchases, $11,800. The rest had been funneled through a series of shell companies that existed only on paper, but which had billing addresses that traced back to post office. Boxes rented by Harold Wickham, $35,000 to $100 stolen from children who came to school hungry and went home hungrier. But that wasn't all. She found contracts with textbook companies owned by political organizations, companies that produced educational materials designed to promote specific ideologies, rather than actual learning. Cedar Grove was being paid to use these books, paid to miseducate their children. Anna photographed everything, every document, every invoice, every bank record she could find. Her camera's memory card filled up, so she used her phone. When that filled up, she started a second card. She was so focused on documenting the evidence that she almost missed the sound of footsteps. In the hallway, Anna's blood turned to ice. Someone was in the building. She quickly closed the filing cabinets, turned off her flashlight, and crouched behind Wickham's desk. The footsteps were getting closer. The office door opened. "I know you're in here." Wickham's voice was calm, almost conversational. "The alarm system sends alerts to my phone when certain areas are accessed after hours." Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. She was trapped. "You can come out now, Miss Brennan." "There's nowhere to go." Slowly, Anna stood up. Wickham stood in the doorway, not looking surprised at all. Behind him were the two lawyers from before, and a man she didn't recognize. "Security consultant," Wickham explained, noting her glance. "We've been expecting this." "Expecting what?" "A nosy substitute teacher who doesn't understand the reality of public education funding." Wickham stepped into the office, his expensive shoes clicking on the hardwood floor. Did you really think you could waltz in here and play detective? Anna lifted her chin. I think someone needs to ask why children are going hungry while you drive a BMW. Wickham laughed. Oh, my dear, you really don't understand how this works, do you? He gestured for her to sit, but Anna remained standing. Let me explain something. To you, Wickham continued. Federal education funding is a beautiful thing. Lots of money, very little oversight, and tremendous flexibility in how it's used. The government doesn't care if Johnny can read, as long as Johnny can fill out the right forms. Those children are hungry. Those children are fine. They get enough nutrition to function. That's all they need. Their parents work minimum wage jobs. They'll work minimum wage jobs. Their children will work minimum wage jobs. Why waste resources giving them delusions of grandeur? Anna stared at him in horror. You're talking about human beings. I'm talking about economics. Do you know what it costs to properly feed and educate every child in this district? More than this community can afford. So we make choices efficient. Choices. One of the lawyers stepped forward. Miss Brennan, you've committed several crimes tonight. Breaking and entering, theft of confidential documents, corporate espionage, documenting child abuse, and a shot back. Malicious interference with educational administration, the lawyer corrected. We could have you arrested right now. We could ensure you never work in education again anywhere in the country. Anna's hands shook, but her voice stayed steady. Then why don't you? Wickham smiled. Because we're reasonable people. You're young, idealistic. You made a mistake. We're willing to forget this ever happened. He pulled out a document. This is a transfer request. Effective immediately. You'll be moved to a position in Des Moines. Better pay, better benefits, a real future in education. Anna looked at the paper. It was real. A genuine offer for a position that would advance her career and get her out of Cedar Grove. All you have to do is sign, Wickham continued, and forget everything you think you saw tonight. What about the children? What about them? They'll be fine. They always have been. Anna thought about Billy Martinez saving half his sandwich, about children throwing away food that was too poor, quality to eat, about textbooks designed to keep them ignorant and compliant. She thought about her grandmother's voice. Truth has a way of growing, Annie. She looked Wickham in the eye and did something that surprised even her. She smiled. Mr. Wickham, she said quietly, I need to tell you something my grandmother taught me. Oh, when someone offers you a bribe, it means they're scared of what you know. Wickham's face darkened. Miss Brennan, you're making a serious mistake, maybe. But I'd rather make mistakes than steal food from hungry children. She started toward the door, but the security consultant blocked her path. I'm afraid you can't leave with those photographs, Wickham said. Anna smiled again. What photographs? She'd uploaded everything to a cloud storage account before they arrived. Even if they took her phone and camera, the evidence was safe. Wickham seemed to realize this. His face went through several colors before settling on a shade of red. That suggested his blood pressure was reaching dangerous levels. You have no idea what you're doing, he said. No idea who you're dealing with. This goes far beyond Cedar Grove, far beyond Iowa. Then maybe it's time someone started asking bigger questions. The security consultant looked at Wickham, who nodded slightly. Miss Brennan. The man said, you need to understand something. People who interfere with certain operations sometimes have accidents. Sometimes they just disappear. Sometimes their families have problems. It was a threat, clear and direct. Anna felt fear crawl up her spine like ice water, but she also felt something else. Something that felt suspiciously like her grandmother's hand on her shoulder. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. Anna looked around the room. For men, one woman, all the power on their side. Except for one thing. Mr. Wickham, she said. I need to ask you something. Do you believe in God? The question seemed to catch him off guard. What? It's simple. Do you believe there's a God who sees what we do? Who judges how we treat the innocent? Wickham laughed, but it sounded forced. This isn't Sunday school, Miss Brennan. No, Anna agreed. It's not, but I was just wondering. Because if you do believe in God, you might want to look out the window. Despite himself, Wickham glanced toward the window, perched on the flagpole. Outside, clearly visible in the security lighting, was a bald eagle. At midnight, in the middle of Iowa, staring directly at the office window, the room went dead silent. Anna had never believed in signs, had always thought people who claimed divine intervention were just looking for excuses to explain coincidence. But as she stared at that magnificent bird, a bird that had no business being there at that time of night, she felt something shift inside her chest. She wasn't alone. "Gentlemen," she said quietly, "I think this conversation is over." And somehow, impossibly, they let her walk out. Anna didn't sleep that night. She sat at her grandmother's kitchen table, staring at her laptop screen and the hundreds of photographs she'd taken. Evidence of systematic theft, proof of educational manipulation, documentation of institutional child abuse. But she also knew that Wickham was right about one thing. This went beyond Cedar Grove. At dawn, she made a series of phone calls, first to the Iowa Department of Education, then to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, then to the Iowa Attorney General's office, finally to a reporter at the Des Moines Register who specialized in education corruption. By the time she arrived at school Monday morning, Anna Ruth Brennan was no longer just a substitute teacher. She was a federal whistleblower. The school day started normally enough. Children arrived on buses and in cars, carrying backpacks and lunch boxes, chattering about weekend adventures and upcoming tests. Anna taught math and reading, helped with art projects, and settled playground disputes. But at 10:47 a.m., everything changed. Federal agents arrived, not local police, not county sheriffs, FBI agents in dark suits with badges and briefcases, accompanied by state auditors and officials from the Department of Education. Anna watched from her classroom window as Harold Wickham was escorted from the building in handcuffs. Principal Foster followed an hour later. By lunchtime, every child in Cedar Grove Elementary was receiving full portions of food that actually looked like food. The federal investigators had brought in temporary cafeteria staff from the state capitol, and watching Billy Martinez's face as he bit into a real sandwich with actual meat and cheese was worth every terrifying moment of the past week. But Anna's fight was far from over. The investigation revealed that the Cedar Grove corruption was part of a network spanning 12 school districts across 3 states. Millions of dollars had been stolen from federal programs designed to feed and educate children. Textbook companies with ties to extremist political organizations had been systematically placed in schools to ensure that an entire generation grew up ignorant of their rights and accepting of inequality. Anna testified before Congress. She spoke at education conferences. She was interviewed by journalists from around the country. Some people called her a hero. Others called her a troublemaker. Anna didn't care about either label. She cared about the letter she received from Miguel Martinez, written in careful English. "That must have taken him hours to compose," said Garita Anna. "My Billy came home today and told me his lunch was big like Papa's hands. He ate everything and asked for seconds. Tonight he did not save his dinner for tomorrow. Tonight he smiled like a boy should smile. Gracias. Gracias por ver nuestros hijos. Thank you for seeing our children." Harold Wickham was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. He forfeited his house, his BMW, and his wife's Mercedes. His daughter had to transfer to public school. Margaret Foster received 8 years and was permanently barred from working in education. The textbook companies were investigated and dissolved. The political organizations behind them faced federal charges for corruption of the educational process. But the victory Anna treasured most was smaller and more personal. At the end of that school year, the school board offered her a permanent position, not as a substitute, as a full teacher, with tenure and benefits and the security she'd never had. Anna turned it down. Instead, she took a job with the Iowa Department of Education as a fraud investigator. Her mission: travel to school districts across the state, looking for the signs she'd learned to recognize in Cedar Grove, protecting children who couldn't protect themselves. On her last day at Cedar Grove Elementary, the children in her class presented her with a handmade card, 22 signatures in crayon and pencil, with drawings of eagles and hearts and flowers. Billy Martinez had written, in his careful second-grade handwriting, Thank you for making the food good and seeing us when we were hungry. Anna kept that card on her desk for the rest of her career. 20 years later, she would attend Billy Martinez's graduation from Iowa State University, where he received a degree in education with a specialty in childhood nutrition. He was the first person in his family to attend college. He told the graduation audience that his dream was to become a teacher because I had a teacher once who showed me that one person who cares is stronger than a whole system that doesn't. Anna cried through his entire speech. The lesson of Anna Ruth Brennan isn't complicated. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is see what others choose to ignore. Evil thrives in darkness, in secrecy, in the comfort of knowing that good people will mind their own business. But Anna refused to mind her own business when children were hungry, when truth was being distorted, when the vulnerable were being exploited by those sworn to protect them. She was just one substitute teacher in a small Iowa town, but she chose to see, she chose to speak, she chose to stand, and that choice changed everything. Today, there are federal programs in place specifically designed to prevent the kind of corruption Anna exposed. There are whistleblower protections for educators who report abuse. There are oversight mechanisms to ensure that money meant for children actually reaches children. None of that existed before Anna Ruth Brennan decided that hungry children mattered more than job security. The eagle that appeared on the flagpole that night was never explained. Some called it coincidence. Others called it divine intervention. Anna called it a reminder that even when we feel alone, even when we're facing impossible odds, even when powerful people want us to stay quiet and invisible, we're not alone. Truth has a way of growing. Justice has a way of rising. And sometimes, if we're brave enough to look up from our own small concerns and see the suffering around us, sometimes we discover that we were put exactly where we are, exactly when we are, for exactly the reason we're needed. Anna Ruth Brennan was supposed to be invisible. Instead, she chose to make the invisible visible, and that made all the difference. If Anna's story moves you, if you've ever wondered whether one person can really make a difference, if you believe that protecting children is worth any risk, share her story, because somewhere, right now, there's another Anna in another small town, seeing something wrong and wondering if she should speak up. There's another Billy Martinez going home hungry, while the people who are supposed to care about him get rich. There's another system that counts on good people staying quiet. Your voice matters. Your courage matters. Your willingness to see what others ignore, that changes the world. One child at a time. One truth at a time. One act of courage at a time. Don't be invisible. Be like Anna. See, speak, stand. The children are counting on you.